Hello there, wonderful people. It's Stuart Bell here, business coach and founder of Adari Coaching Consulting. And today's Finnovator is a continuation of a new shift that I've made. I'm still going to be going out there and interviewing practitioners who've achieved fantastic things, people with really interesting business models, or subject matter experts who have real passion and value to share. But I wanted to expand it out. Over the last 8 years, I've created so many pieces of content within the program in the form of training modules supported by tools, templates, and other practical implementation tools in order to help my clients achieve results in their business across a range of different areas. And I realized recently that we've got all of this content, all of these modules sat there, and I wanted to share some of them. Last week, I shared the one about how to build a great website for your practice, and this is another one that I've been incredibly passionate about. This one's called Hub Strategy, and it came around, to be honest, firstly because a big part of what I do and what I've done for many, many years is based around creating a client portal that I can share resources with my clients and become the central point of everything from their business plans to their session summaries to training and a whole bunch of other things that they can go to and know that things are there. And I know many businesses out there, advice businesses, accounting businesses, and broking businesses have looked to do the same thing. And I also know many businesses have kind of made false starts on this. I've had many businesses who've set up, I won't mention any names, but they've set up a client portal or a cash flow tool with every intention that this would become a hugely important tool for their clients, something they would use regularly, and something that would enable them to create efficiencies around data collection and a whole bunch of other things, and only to find they just couldn't get adoption. It didn't work for them, and then eventually they kind of end the subscription, stop paying the money, and move on. But I also know it's an area that so many businesses want to get good at, because ultimately, if you can get something like this working with your clients, not only does it provide benefit to them, it becomes such a key part of them managing their financial plan. It also becomes a valuable resource that you can offer to them and a way that you can do everything from manage their data more securely, get efficiency in data gathering, create consistency in the way they engage, and a whole bunch of other stuff in there, retention, efficiency, and a bunch more. So this module that I put together, I think about a year and a half ago, was really to attack this question of how as a business can you set up a portal and set up the way that you teach clients to engage with it and work with that portal so it becomes that central focal point. And the key to this as we go through it, you're going to realize is about two things. It's about making sure that it is central to their world, but also it's central to your world. So I hope this is really useful. If you're looking to go down the route of portals, this will be really helpful to get your head around sort of the lessons that might have been learned from other businesses that didn't nail it. And if you're already have a portal out there and it's not getting the traction, this might enable you to diagnose exactly why and how to fix it. As always, if you really like this content, if it's useful and you're finding it powerful, I'd love it if you take a moment just to give a review. Leave a bit of a star review, and even better, tell us a bit about why you like it so other people who are coming past can understand who this is for, what's covered, and potentially why they might want to listen to it. It's the best way for me to get what I do out there and get greater adoption. Other than that, I hope you enjoy Hub Strategy, and I'll see you on the other side. This is the week where we're going to do things a little bit differently, because week one was pretty heavy. That was a heavier topic. 2 was a little bit lighter, but again, it's a bit of a heavy topic, another heavier topic. This is going to be a discussion about something that I've been talking to many of you for a while now. It's a strategy which, for many of you, it may not be an implement right now kind of thing. And for many of you, it might be something you've just not even thought of doing. But nonetheless, the opportunity here, I'm going to talk a lot about the opportunity and where it might fit moving forward and why it might be something that you'll want to be looking at sort of in the next couple of years. And it's all about this idea of a hub strategy. Now, I mentioned in some of the preface that for those of you that use a client portal or some sort of tool, this is really unpacking elements of that and how to make that work for your business. And some of it you might already be doing, in which case it's going to be a validation of the strategies. Some of it might be sort of introducing some new stuff. Some of it might be giving you some extra elements that you can adopt. For those of you that don't have a portal, it's still going to be relevant because it's going to talk about the tangibility you offer. It's going to talk about how to get efficiency, and it's going to talk about how to align sort of the way clients engage with you and the way that you engage with clients. So I'm keen to get some discussion going because on this topic, I don't feel like I'm somebody who has all the answers. And rather, I think, you out there, Sean, I know where you have been looking at this. Josh, I imagine you've gone into detail. Debbie, I will know this will be part of your thing. So I'm really keen to get some sharing going on. Is that cool? Excellent. And by the way, guys, if you're not registered for the session at 1:00, you really should, because it's going to be good. Okay, hub strategy. Let's kick it off. So far, we've done first 90 days, which I really enjoyed. The staffing thing was something that I think everybody on the session came out with at least one thing they could do. The third one here, and this is the final, is about the, as I said, the hub strategy. So let me just take a moment. I want you to have a think. Think about what are the tools that you personally use, not business tools, by the way, not advice tools, other things, apps, web apps, things you log on to. It could even be manual tools. What are some tools that you use, if not most days, if not all days, and definitely most? Just take a moment. It's going to be the obvious ones, right? Usually the ones on your phone. But what are the tools that you tend to use every day? You open in the morning, you use them at lunchtime. Maybe they're just something you do at nighttime. It might be something manual. Like I've formed a real habit around journaling. Over lockdown, I bought some adjustable dumbbells because I was just turning into a couch potato. So every morning I try and get up and do some work on those. So that would be a tool I use. Facebook would be an obvious one for me. Investing.com app, of course, Josh. I don't doubt it. So that's a daily thing, right? Jump in, and specifically, what do you use it for?
I'm pretty much keeping an eye on my portfolios that I have for clients, just seeing the various managed funds and what they're actually doing, but also just seeing how the market and different segments of the market are doing as well.
Cool. And is there anything specific that's sort of not related to work that you tend to use? And Josh is like, no, I'm working all the time. Debbie, what about you? You a Facebook user?
Yeah, probably just social media, Netflix, if I'm not working.
Yep, cool. Sean?
Yeah, I'd say the same, unfortunately. It's weird. It's the only daily habit, yeah.
And the reason I'm asking, we'll get to the heart of it, but if you actually analyze some of your behavior and you analyze what you use on a regular basis, whether it's physical equipment or whether it's apps and tools, you start to notice that there's certain things that are habitual. You know what I mean? You just you do it. It's become a natural part of your behavior. And there's certain things we do on a frequent basis because they're useful. Josh, I'd imagine you log into investing.com because it's really helpful to get your overview straight away, right?
Yep.
Puzzle page. Who said that? That was Josh. Yeah. Puzzles, right? That's just that's a thing you enjoy. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today and diving into is this idea of making what you do and making what you do for clients something that, instead of being an every now and again thing, becomes almost like a regular piece. Because the big idea sort of behind this is, I actually literally, I was looking for the slide of this particular, or the model in a slide, and I ended up finding some really old slide decks from my early MLC days. Oh my God. You wouldn't believe the color schemes on these. But look, to cut a long story short, when I was at MLC in the early 2000s, this was what they were going out and pitching to advisors, right? The hub and spoke model. The big idea here is that you wanted to be here and the client was here, and you'd be, at the center of all of their decisions, all of the things they need to do, all of the financial matters. Now, I actually think in many ways this is a good idea. I was speaking to an advisor who had this model, and he turned around and said, "Do you know how I present it to clients? I present to clients by saying, how does the guy who lends you money get paid? Well, the more money you borrow, the more he gets paid. How does the guy who, your accountant gets paid? Well, the more hours you work, the more he gets paid. How about the lawyer? More hours you work, the more he gets paid. Stockbroker, more he trades, right?" And he said, who do you want at the beginning? The person who gets paid for volume or the person who gets fee for service? So there's elements of this that are really good. But the real reason for positioning this back in the day was because, from a retention and value point of view and engagement point of view, this is a great model to have. Make sense? The downside, and why it isn't more prevalent, is a lot of the time when people adopted this model, they'd end up doing everything, literally walking the dog, organizing the concierge service, which sounds great in practice, but when you dive into it, you end up having to do a bunch of stuff that isn't relevant. And if you come forward 20 years, I'd imagine a lot of businesses that went down this and didn't price it correctly, right here and now, they'd be in a world of hurt with everything they need to do. So it tended to be a model that mostly worked for high net worth or mass affluent clients. But the rationale behind it was actually pretty strong. If you do just a little bit of research into the value of getting high levels of client retention, high level of customer engagement. This is a cracker. Take Harvard Business Studies review. Increasing customer retention rates by 5% increases profits by 25 to 95%. This is one that's been floating around in many different guises, but generally winning a new customer is recognized as being on average 5 times more expensive than retaining an existing one, which is kind of true if you think of the amount of work we have to do up front when we bring someone on board. This is a really good one. The probability of providing further advice to an existing client is usually 14 times higher than the probability of providing advice to just some random person out there. Another good one. Once a client makes a decision to disengage with ongoing advisor, less than 20% of those clients will come back to the original advisor. And whether that's an embarrassment thing or a disengagement. And this is also going into the tech world. There was a recent study of a music app that came on the market and pitched a free plan to people who are paying paid plans for their music. And the majority of people, I think it was like 90% of people said they didn't want to switch even to a free app because they didn't want to lose their playlists and all of their connections. Does that make sense? So it indicates that sort of retention and engagement is a really good game to play. But this is not what this is about. It's a good side effect. The truth is, I guess most of you, your customer or client retention rates would be up around the 98, 90, 97, 98, if not higher. In other words, the general customer lifetime value of most advice firms is 20 years. That's generally how long you keep most clients going forward. So retention is not really a problem. But where it does come in is kind of a lot of the concepts that are covered in really well in this book, Nur Ayal's book, Hooked. This book's a bit of a Silicon Valley sort of Bible, and it kind of lifts the lid on what, I may have spoken about this before, it lifts the lid on what Silicon Valley have known for a while. And we're now seeing come out some of the Facebook depositions, which is the real art of launching a great tech product is actually about getting people addicted to that product. Make sense? We all know it, right? Because we've all been in that kind of loop. Now, not all of this is bad. If you've got a product that is proven to create a negative impact on people, such as social media and young children, and you actively encourage it for commercial reasons, that's not good. And that's definitely something I think we need higher ethical controls over. But what if your product, and particularly the systems underneath the product and the behaviors it's designed to create and the decisions it's meant to facilitate actually create a beneficial outcome, such as managing your financial affairs better to produce a better outcome? Now, creating habit loops and creating behavioral things, if that's the case, that would be quite appealing. Would you agree? Cool. So when you dive in under the deeper, amongst the insight is this idea about what it takes to create what I call a state beyond engagement, which someone is engaged and then they go to being completely invested. That person who won't switch music apps, or they think about getting out of their financial planning software tool and they won't because there's too much data in there. It's taken them too long. Does that make sense? This idea that there's two forces at work, which is why I started off today. There's how often you use something. The more often you use something, the more likely it is to become a habit. And at the top here, we've got something you use every day. And over here, we've got something we might use once a year. And then the second piece here is perceived utility, how useful that is. Something that is, indispensable is generally on that side. And something that is, frankly, quite insignificant probably lives more on that side. Does that make sense? So up here, generally down, this is the point below that line where something generally is unloved. We're not using it very often, or alternatively, we don't see it as being very useful. But the area where we get engagement and specifically investment and value is sort of north of that line. So mic off for a second. I'm going to ask you a few questions about where various different things. I'm really interested in your opinion. So if I said, where does Facebook sit in this pantheon? Where would you say? Debbie, top left, middle?
For me or for everybody?
Oh, let's just go for everybody. Well, you can do it for you. Yeah, let's do it for you. Where does Facebook sit for you?
Daily and insignificant.
Okay, so your sort of engagement with Facebook is based predominantly on something you do. It's useful, but if you took it away, it's not going to change your life, is it?
No.
Okay, cool. Anyone own a Thermomix?
Yes.
Okay, David, where does a Thermomix sit for you? Well, I have it just to put your mind at ease. I have a Thermomix as well, so this isn't a shaming thing. I think they're great.
It's top right corner for us. We use
top
it
right
daily.
corner.
Yep.
Okay. So for me, I would say it's probably down there. We don't use it as much as we should, given the ridiculous price we paid for it. But every time we do use it, find it incredibly useful. But for you, it's up there, is it?
I've got 4 kids, so
yeah. Well,
you need efficiency.
4 kids. Damn. No, I get that. It is very great. It's great, but let's not make this a cult thermomix session. Okay, next one for you. Who's got an e-scooter? Okay, let's just canvass opinions around the room because I reckon everybody's got an opinion. Where do you think an e-scooter would sit in this grand pantheon? Josh?
Maybe middle top.
You reckon middle top?
Depends on if they're using it daily, I suppose.
My neighbour bought one and he would say, down here, he would say, great idea, completely useless. I don't use it. It sits in the garage. I'm going to sell it to him 2 weeks later, right? Let's talk about, what about your accountant? Sean, where would you say your accountant sits?
My accountant in particular doesn't do a lot of work, so he is annual and maybe a little bit more than insignificant, but yeah, he's a pretty reactive guy.
Okay, so you don't really deal with him a lot, but he kind of gets away with it, not gets away with it because he sits above the utility line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what about, anyone use a budgeting app?
Yes.
Okay, Sean, where does your budgeting app sit?
I probably use, at least monthly, and it's sort of relatively significant in the middle again.
In the middle? See, for me, it started off there and it ended up coming back here. And as a result of being there, it drops in there pretty quickly, right? You get where I'm going with this. So the next question I really want to ask is, where does financial advice sit for most consumers?
Most consumers would be in the bottom left, probably.
Bottom left, yeah.
Bottom left? What about your clients?
It wouldn't be daily. I'd say probably it'd be frequent. And then, many of my ongoing clients probably think I'd like to think I'm indispensable, but they probably don't think the same, maybe in the centre somewhere.
I reckon, and look, I was going to do a whole bunch of them, your phone, Uber, gym membership, online banking, you can do all of it. I reckon when you look at it, the advice zone is probably there. Because in most cases, it's not something where it's being used frequently. You know what I mean? It's something where, it's probably a bit more, for most of you, it's a bit more than, definitely more than annually. Maybe it's more frequent than that, but we're certainly not getting someone, they're not logging onto your site every day or open an email or expecting to see you every day. Certainly not weekly. Monthly, maybe they probably go a month without thinking about you. So therefore, you can kind of see how the importance of advice and sticking with advice, it's all about utility, right? It's all about usefulness. And I guess what's really interesting, because if you take as investment is that state where somebody goes from, okay, I'm on board, to this is great, I'm engaging, to I couldn't do without this. And all we've got to aim at is that place here. It means that's why our value proposition has to be so sharp and has to be communicated so clearly. And today is really about asking that question. Well, what if we could change that over the next 3, maybe 2, 3 or 4 years, and we could actually lift the frequency aspect up, keep the utility there, lift the frequency up, potentially there's opportunity there. Would you agree? So I guess usually at this page I might just ask the question, and if you've got an answer, but it's something to think about. I like to look at it and go, what's your core retention play? When it comes to retaining clients, what's the number one weapon in your kit bag for doing that? I mean, for me, it's definitely contact and making sure my clients know what's coming up, know what we're working on. They're always feeling optimistic about where we're going. They're always clear on there's something to help. What about you, Debbie? What's your number one thing?
Be the relationship that the advisors have with their clients.
100%. Which leads me to the second question is, how scalable is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I reckon you've done well to scale it. I mean, you've got a good relationship spread around the team and you've got a lot of systems in the back. But yeah, ultimately the relationship is a big part of it. And, not if you took that relationship between key members away, then, you're not going to lose people, but you definitely have to work a little bit harder to same value. And the question I like to ask is, would you like it to be more scalable? And I think most people would say, yeah, I would actually. I'd like to have something else going on in the business. Sean, what about you? Any different answer?
No, pretty similar. I mean,
Okay.
it is that ongoing care and making sure you are staying in touch with clients. Yeah.
Josh is nodding his head. So I guess you're in agreement?
I'm in agreement. I think also because I specialise in that investment space, I think a lot of clients trust the process, but also when I have spoken to a few of them, they know what I'm doing but don't at the same time. So I don't think they can't replicate it. So I think that's also part of the core retention play as well. Even though I know stock picking and those type of fund picking isn't a big in the previous surveys that have been done isn't the big part that people value. I think that's an added part that does make them a bit stickier for me.
That is such a good point, and it's something I hadn't actually considered, how much the investment proposition, particularly traditionally, that was that scalable aspect, right? That was it. We've got the secret sauce, we've got the process or whatever it is. But I guess what's happened is as investment opportunities, you can bet it's much easier to invest more directly than it is now. And there's much less people are more confident about doing themselves. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's a really good point. David, do you have anything you want to add?
Look, we've got a lot of SMSFs and they're sticky because they're not going to go do it themselves. They might go to their accountant. We've lost a couple over the years due to prices, but yeah, I found in the last 7-8 years, they tend not to go away. I wouldn't say it's very scalable though, because it requires staff to manage the funds. So yeah, you have to grow your team unless you increase technology.
And I know a lot of advisors who've made a good living over the last 4 or 5 years dismantling SMSF. So it was a really sexy area and it still is. I mean, like someone like me, I'm right here now. I'm going, you know what? I would like to buy my office, put it in a self-managed super fund. I'll be my own landlord. Makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot of people out there, they can get the same outcome in a wrap, really. Probably better deal. But it's a really good point. So the kind of other trend which is going on, and what I'm taking aim at here is there are so many solutions which have come out over the last period, which are all offering some form of portal. There's MoneySoft. My Prosperity is a big one. And I would argue My Prosperity have been trying to get traction for a long time now in very specific ways. Robert Skinner, who's going to come along to our session later, he is the creator of the Financial Knowledge Center, and he did the same thing. eMoney in the States, Moxtra, some might have used Feedsy in the past. There's plenty of people who are out there offering to sell portals and content and all the rest of it. Do any of you use any of these, by the way? Sean, you do?
Yes, I use the Financial Knowledge Center. I have played around with both MoneySoft and My Prosperity, but it was a while ago and I'm looking to get back in. Yeah.
Cool. Debbie, you do or don't?
We tried My Prosperity for a little while with our clients, but not anymore.
Didn't get traction?
No.
Yeah. And this is the thing. There's all this speak out there in the industry. Millennials expect a client portal and digital experiences. There's you can find scathes of content talking about the importance of a portal. But I would argue, and I had this conversation with Vice Intelligence when they were talking about their process of signing people up for client portals and all the rest of it. I don't know how much usage there is in there, because I've had 3 or 4 clients who've had the Financial Knowledge Center. And when we pull up the numbers about the people who are actually accessing it, I mean, the open rate, the actual access rates are below 1 or 2% in most cases. So there's an indication that whilst it's all there, and I could be wrong, there's certainly, I don't feel like they're meeting the need. Would that be fair to say, or do you disagree?
Yes, I think it's one of those things you get complacent with this stuff. Like I've used the Financial Knowledge Center for years, and you stop looking at whether clients are actually engaging with it or not at some point.
You do.
Just assume, yeah.
It's almost like just the newsletter. I just put it out. I don't care about it anymore, which is fine. But I guess if we flip it around and go, okay, what if we did want it to work? What would be the motivations for maybe wanting to make this work? And I always come back to the 15% conundrum. Have I spoken to any of you about this? Okay, cool. So the background to the 15% conundrum is the idea, the number hasn't shifted for years. 15% of Australians, give or take a bit, get advice. And we've been talking for literally over 10 years for, we've got to get the other 85, we've got to get the other 5. And it's almost like nothing has shifted the dial. And when I went to the States in 2016, and I met on a study tour, and I met with a whole bunch of people over there. There were advice firms, there were FPA, there was a whole bunch of people. It suddenly came into real clear focus because of some research about why the percentage of clients getting advice seems to be stuck at 15%. And it boils down to, when you analyze the market, there's 3 parts of the market. The first one's called the delegators. And the delegators are best defined as somebody who wants someone to do it for all. And guess what? They tend to be about 15% of people. Now, when you dive into who the delegators are, they are the do-it-for-me people. They're the people going out and going, I want an advisor. They generally prefer to work with people who are going to take the lead, manage the work. Often, they're older, wealthier clients. They can often be time poor. Often, they're business people because they've got previous experience paying for professional services. They might want to get in with you and have a bit of a look at it and understand how it's going, but they must often just as easy to sort of hands off as well. And interestingly, some of the research, which I found really interesting, showed that sometimes their motivation to delegate isn't just about putting the choices in hands of more capable decision makers. Sometimes their motivation is actually to give up responsibility and have someone to blame, which is kind of something to watch out for, because particularly now when you turn, like, someone doesn't respond to anything and something goes wrong. I literally had someone who was telling me about this the other day. They had a client in they bought a business from an advisor, they integrated, and then this advisor had their insurance with them, right? And they're emailing this advisor, your insurance is going to expire, your insurance is going to expire, your insurance is going to expire. The insurance company is doing the same. The insurance expires. 6 months later, the advisor comes back and tries to put in a complaint. You didn't tell me. You should have kept. We're just looking at it going, that's a classic case of someone who doesn't want to take responsibility. Does it make sense?
Are you saying advisor or client there?
Well, the client was the advisor who'd sold the business.
Right.
Okay. Made it even worse. He was an advisor. He knew the deal, and then just tried to. Anyway, the rest of the market belong to two real mindsets. They're non-delegators. They don't want to hand it over, and they're made up of validators and self-services. Interestingly, the research into this shows that even though they don't have advisors, 6% of them still indicate they're concerned about their finances, right? So it's not that they haven't got a need, it's just their mindset and how to deal with it is different. Validators are the do-it-with-me people. They're like, I want to know that I've got this right. These are people who are often confident, maybe because of their situation, maybe they've already created goals or plans along the way. Maybe because of what they've done, they've invested in property, or they maybe know a little bit about investing, so they think they've got it all. They're open to advice if it's at the right price point, but they also prefer to kind of review, unpack, and understand those decisions before they're signed off. It's not that they distrust people, but it's more that they want to make the calls. And as you guys would know from experience, they can be really prone to overestimating the quality of their decision making and underestimating the risks. Yeah, everyone smiles when they say that. Actually, like, yep, I know someone like that. And then there's the self-servicing. The people, I'll do it by myself. I can mostly achieve what I want to on my own. Again, these are people who may have already pre-existing expertise. Tech guys, tech people. Anyone deal with tech people? I know Chris Nan does. Yeah, they typically have they're very entrepreneurs in general. They're kind of, pants out entrepreneurs. They're generally pretty confident that they can get you a better return than you. So that tends to influence their choice of things. They don't see themselves as someone who wants an advisor, but they're someone who's often willing to pay someone to do X, Y, and Z. Really high net worth people, for example, there's research to show they tend to have multiple advisors, and they give each of them mandates. And then the more and more they do well, they'll give them more and more mandates. Again, prone to biases. The point of sharing this with you is what sort of is missing from a lot of the analysis is the realization that often validators who are exposed to really good advice will become delegators. And self-servicing people who are given the opportunity to engage as validators will become validators and then often become delegators. But everything in our industry tends to be focused on servicing the delegators. And I kind of look at it and I go, it's lucky robo-advice didn't get their act together. Lucky they stuffed it up, version 1. And they didn't get it right. Lucky they didn't realize that people don't want to hand over their money to a machine. They want to talk to somebody first, because if they didn't, the flow of leads coming in right, that's happened this year, probably wouldn't have come in, right? But luckily we didn't. So I guess the first question, though, before we look at those markets and we go, okay, there's 85% of people there that are, we could get them if we just change the offer and change the aspect of it. The question is, do we really want to? Josh, do you really want to? Do you want to work with more of those people and nurture them into sort of, delegators?
I think so, because my business model and what I've been working on, obviously, looking at starting to do these 90 days and wow moments, but I've been really trying to focus on the efficiency of scale with what I do with the portfolio. So yeah, I mean, because it's a repeatable, robust process that I do think that validators and also the self-servicing, they can see the value in what I do. So yes.
Good. So you'd like to have a piece of that market. Cool. Sean?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to say no.
Debbie?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
She's like, I'll have some of that. David, how about you? I think Davey's wrestling a 10-month-old. So look, it's interesting because sometimes you have conversations with businesses and they go, I don't want to work with those people. I just want to work with people who will take advice, who will work with me. And I get that, right? Sometimes, we'd have a conversation about everything that's going on in the industry. And I'd turn around and go, but you don't need to convert everybody. You just need 100 clients who love what you do, understand what you do, and you're set, right? Until you're going to get your next 100. But at the same time, I think there's an opportunity here, and I wanted to share it, and I wanted to get your view on it because it's a big part of sort of how I view where we're going. Let's take a step back. It's about 30 years ago, right? Welcome to your local gym. You can kind of see it's rusting equipment. It's a pretty rubbish layout. You can kind of smell the sweat that's been soaked into the walls. It's probably either tacked onto the side of a tennis club, and it's probably managed by a guy called Trevor, who his heart's just not in it. And there's personal trainers out there 30 years ago, but let's be honest, they're either working in Hollywood or they're working for really rich people. Maybe you've got a VCR, Betamax, and you've got Jane Fonda tape, so you're sorted. But generally, it's kind of different. And if you come forward 30 years, fitness is now a global industry. Compare our 15% with the participation rates across age groups in Australia. Those proportions comparatively are off the scale. And the numbers, this is where it gets interesting, show that fitness is now as much of a staple as having a phone. The average Australian lays out $79 a month on gym memberships. That's nearly $1,000 a year just on gym memberships. That's not including supplements, clothing, or any other equipment. When you go up to people in their 40s, that ramps up to $100 a month just on fitness. Yep, 40-year-olds, they're desperately trying not to get fat and slow, which kind of proves the point that Australians tend to care more about financial fitness than they do about fitness, like body fitness, than they do about financial fitness, which is really weird because all the research shows that it's the latter, the financial fitness, which is actually the stronger driver of personal well-being. Might not be a nice factor to talk about, but the evidence shows that rich people live longer than people who don't have the resources to invest in their health. That's just the way it is. On top of that, I think the fitness industry has evolved in some amazing ways. Like personal training now, it sucks if you're a personal trainer, but it's a pretty affordable quantity. How many people here have had a personal trainer at one point or another? Yeah, I paid for one. I've had some terrible ones. I've had some good ones. Group training. They've got group training with very different ethos. You've got your military training, you've got your boxing training, you've got your MMA, you've got your CrossFit. It's everywhere. And where does the pricing hover? $200 a month up, right? Add in, you've got the explosion of some really good technologies. This is Fitbod. I use this most days. It's great. You tell it what equipment you want, tell it how often you want to work out, and it comes up with a plan every day. You just follow the plan, tick it off, bang. And it tracks everything from muscle soreness. It just takes everything that makes training, walking into the gym. What am I going to do today? What did I do last week? Oh, I've got to write down. Takes it all away and just makes it really simple. Even better than that, anyone familiar with Gyroscope? Another app that I got into. Tools like Gyroscope combine, they track your exercise, weight via the Bluetooth that's connected to the scales, sleep, mood, habits, gives me live coaching. You know what? The only thing it doesn't do? Money. For me, this is kind of where the new frontier is, right? The opportunity not just to engage the 85% who are not yet on board, but kind of that bigger mission, which is to solve many of the financial problems that people have by helping people do more of the things that allow them to take control instead of doing the things that allow sort of money to control them. But I guess the technology is one side of it. But I want to ask this. Do you feel like it has to be about technology? Do you have to have technology to make this work? Josh, you think that yes?
I love technology, so it's kind of ingrained in me. So look, I think probably clients may not be as excited about technology as I am, but I mean, part of the integral part of what I do involves technology with the portfolio. So I think that plus my love with it goes hand in hand. But I think sometimes tech does make it a bit easier for clients, but then sometimes that can also be a double-edged sword.
That's true. That's true. Sean, what do you think? Does making this breakthrough has got to be about technology?
I think at scale the tech's very important, but even just in my own experience, My Prosperity or whatever it is a great tool, but if you don't implement it and have the processes behind it, it doesn't do anything. 100%. So yeah,
that's exactly what we're getting at. David, what do you think?
I don't know how you do it without technology, but yeah, we've always found, given that we have an older demographic of client, that it is really hard to get them to engage with technology. They come here for the client, for the advisor relationship, and to speak to Sharon out the front. They're not really interested in logging into apps and things like that.
Look, it's interesting because I'm a big fan of technology, and I think technology, when you get the right process behind it, you get the right approach, makes things easier. If I had the choice between doing it through technology, I'd choose tech rather than the other way. But I'm not sure that it's necessarily just a technology thing. And by definition, if it's not just a technology thing, it could be harder to do it without tech, but I still think it's possible. Because if we come back to the original framework I showed you at the beginning, if you recall, it was about teaching clients how to work. teaching your team how you work. So at the middle of it, you get everybody aligned with the right business system. In other words, you got the right communications channels. People know how to communicate. They know where it's coming out of. And equally importantly, you get really clear and shared responsibility. So you get an engaged client base and a productive team because nobody's holding everybody up. I guess to sort of take this further, I always think that to get this right starts with asking this question. If you think about your most successful clients that you work with and who've achieved the best outcomes, you'd be able to look at it and go, okay, what are they doing differently in the way that we work together that Stu over there who's not is not getting the same outcome, maybe isn't getting? What is it about the way they manage their money, whether it's something that I directly teach them or something they've kind of adopted or something that they came with that means they're able to do it better? What do they know that other people don't? What is it they've clicked in their head? And finally, what is it they do regularly that helps them to essentially allows them to achieve better outcomes? Now, a lot of it might be technology, but a lot of it might be something different. Like I know from working with people like you, I'm very grateful because I get to learn from you guys different ways of doing things. And I tend to notice trends. I tend to notice trends between what works and what doesn't work. Debbie and I are going to talk about it at 1 o'clock, but businesses that nail technology, what's the number one difference? They have someone in their office who's passionate about technology and understands it. And the more and more you see that, I didn't create that, they came with that, but you recognize it. Josh has got the right proposition because he loves tech, he loves investing. If you don't love investing, don't go down the investment proposition because it's not going to work, right? So again, you can analyze this and have a look. But look, for me, it's about this usage question. We'll talk about this because if you think about any sort of My Prosperity or Knowledge Center or any app, really, and we come back to that adoption thing, there's kind of 3 things that you need to be able to map out and go, how's this going to work? The first thing is, what are the things that are going to happen in the app or in the tool, or what is the methodology of doing certain things that is going to be functional? In other words, its primary function is helping you to simplify what's being done, standardize certain aspects of what you're doing, and alternatively streamline. What are some things that you can put out there and teach clients to do in a certain way that is going to help them to centralize, convenience things or store certain information? And then finally, what are the elements that are going to add value to your clients, which is typically things that are going to excite, involve, connect, and reward. And I'll talk about how to implement. But I sort of mapped it out here and I went, okay, and I'm coming at this from a portal point of view. I'm thinking having a portal that we do the fact finding through, having a portal that we do all the onboarding through, all of data updating, financial modeling is done in the portal. So it's almost like a live SOA being created. Maybe we can aggregate certain accounts, single sign-on, all the advice documents stored in there, with the fee disclosure statements going there, the annual statements going there, all of the compliance documents going there, and we track client actions in there. Make sense? I mean, this is best case scenario, but if you're looking at going, that is what I'd like to do. I'd like to centralize all that. It might not happen today, it might not happen next year, but if you're working towards it, you can kind of align both what you're doing in the team and then the clients behind it. You with me so far on this? Making sense? Okay, cool. What about stuff that's useful for them? Well, I thought about putting your market updates on there. Like if you've got a portal and you're still sending out emails, I kind of feel like something's gone wrong there, right? A market updates, economic commentary, research reports, maybe a calendar of events is in there. What about if you can get all the family documents held in there? Maybe it's a personal vault for other information. They want to go in and put their license in there. They want to put their, I've got a Google Drive folder which has got important docs, which is marriage certificate, birth certificate, citizenship certificate, copies of passports, I mean, much better on someone else's portal. Single sign-on. Maybe introducing partners and offerings. So the only time they're finding out about the fact that you got someone who can do a cash flow for their business or, isn't when they speak to you. And maybe you can even do client feedback and polls, which enables them to give you feedback on where they're going, get information. You with me so far? And then the valuable stuff is, what if every time you got a question through from a client, you put it into your help desk Q&A library? So it's all in there. What about articles of interest? You regularly put articles that you thought were awesome in there. Every Zoom, if you could do the functionality where you have a Zoom meeting with a client, like we do, you could basically do the Zoom meeting in the portal and then save the recording after that. Bang. What about if you could do live webinars in there and store the replays so it's there? What about a client discussion group if you want to go that far? Maybe even if you want to go out of it, run 5-week challenges, run 6 30-day challenges. all of this stuff, if you can kind of go, okay, what tools do I need to make it happen? And conversely, you know, this is the app or this is the, and conversely, what are the processes I need to build in my business so that we use the app? You with me so far? What are your thoughts so far?
I've got a question. How closely because our licensees just recently take on their own Explain site, and they've said they're going to do a client portal, and apparently it's still in testing at the moment, but they're going to release it soon. How much of this do you know of? How much this might actually be in that? Because they're spouting it as being quite good. Like a lot of those functional things are there, but do you have any experience with it?
Yeah, look, I can't talk about Explain because I've gone to Explain like 3 times, and I've spoken to Michael Kinnan. I've had a long sort of relationship. I know Robert Skinner went well, and the observation I have about Explain is some of what they do is amazing, but it always feels like it kind of is always on the cusp of coming out, or it's just missing something. From what I understand about the portal stuff that's coming out for Explain, it's excellent. The thing I don't know is how personalizable, how customizable it is, or how easy it is to sort of bend it to your will. Debbie, do you use it?
Yeah, so we've got the client portal, and when I'm looking at that list, I'll tell you what it does have. And we're on a licensee site, so we can't customize it. If you have your own Explain site, you can customize the portal as much as you like.
Yep. So let's just go.
You can do fact finding on there. Definitely market updates and all the emails. FDS, I know annual consent is coming where you can use a blockchain, so they'll be able to directly log into their portal, do a digital signature, and that'll push it straight through to the product provider.
Yep.
Definitely communications, client feedback. I mean, you could have your Loom video links on there as well.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, so a lot of that could be definitely on there.
You'd need the process behind it because they're not going to lay it out and go, here's how to do it. I can only speak from, I recorded a video about this last week, but I've spoken to a few software providers down the years. That's why I went and spoke to Explain about whether I could do a situation where I go, this is my curriculum. Can we plonk it into your system, and anybody who's using your tool, oh, you're an Adairy client, click a button, all the templates load up. That's been my dream. And I sort of parked it for a while because originally we were talking to Practify, and I was like, Practify, you have to buy Salesforce and Explain, which means you blow your budget straight away. But I started talking to Advice Intelligence, first started talking 2 years ago, and I gave Jackie a call about 8 weeks ago because she's awesome. And I said, Jackie, I've got a pitch for you. I was thinking about, I'd love to play around with someone's tool and maybe see if I can implement it. And I'd spoken to a few people, and I always hit this, you'll have to be a subscriber. And she said, sure, I'm going to set you up with a full version of it and we'll get you an onboarding person. So I'm just starting to play with it, not because I'm sort of particularly in love with any particular solution, but Advice Intelligence, I don't think it's progressed, but it seems to do many of these things. Like they can do like that whole list, they can do it. I haven't tested to see these ones, and I haven't tested to see, but they're kind of going down that route. And this is what I love about it, where they're going, the moment the client comes on board, portal, fact find, walks them through the process. The SOA is actually created in the portal. They originally had no paper SOA. And when they were rolling out to licensees went, we need a paper SOA. Really? Yeah. So they had to put the functionality to print the paper SOA, which I understand. But so
what was that? What was the software that you're talking about?
Advice Intelligence. And I'm playing with it. My attitude on this is this for me is a medium to long-term project. And I'm happy to walk you through it. This is not a pitch for Advice Intelligence. Ultimately, I'm still going through the process. It's more about the fact that I truly believe that going forward, if we're going to get an onboarding process from 26 hours down to the 5 hours it should be, you're going to have to do that by having a central portal where all of this stuff is easy to do. And it also gives you the platform to do other things. Does that make sense?
Question, yeah. Are they looking at doing integration with Explain? Because I obviously don't want to have multiple text solutions and obviously double handling and do all that kind of stuff. Is there any of that kind of integration so that
I'd have to ask because I think it's meant to be a replacement for, but I can ask them. And look, if you want to have a play with it, I'll just speak to Jackie and say, look, I've got a couple of advisors who want to log on to my version, have a bit of a play with it. Does that work for you? And she'll probably go, yeah, no problem. If you generally can. And I'm not trying to pitch this to you. I'm not trying to say you should do this, but I've recognized a while ago, and I did the video. Like for me, the future is I've been working really hard on the business model thing, but what's missing to me is the ability to enable it with a CRM and enable it with a resourcing solution. So I guess, and Jen's listening in the background because she's deeply involved in this. My view is in the next year, maybe 2 years, I want to be able to turn around to you guys and go, welcome to the coaching program. If you'd like to implement everything in the coaching program, you can turn on advice intelligence, hit a button and all of the templates. And by the way, if you need a business manager, fully trained online business manager, come into your business for 3 months, implement processes, systems, operations manuals on a project basis, we can do that too, because that's the point at which you go from, me sitting around doing my best to show you how to do it to bang, bang, bang. But anyway, that's a year down the track. Is this helpful? Let me just run through a couple of things and I'll sort of say, if I was going to implement this, and I don't think this is I started off by saying this is not a flick a switch thing. This is very much, I'm looking forward and going, if we were having this conversation a year and a half, 2 years from now, and you wanted to be on the cutting edge of efficiency and effectiveness and engagement and retention and scalability, this portal thing, I think, is a huge opportunity. And not just buying My Prosperity, it's about, actually getting the engagement. And really it boils down to sort of 3 things. The first thing to get this right, it's kind of like, that saying, all roads lead to Rome. They don't, by the way. It's just a saying. It's kind of got to be, in order to make this work, all roads in your business need to lead to the portal. From day one, you've got to train the clients. From day one, you've got to train the team. If it's like that comes to that point, if you're sending an email to a client from your inbox and it's not going onto the portal, you're missing an opportunity to create that habit. If any of that thing is offline, obviously, there's always going to be areas that you need to sort of fix, but you should be working towards that pace where we work together in the hub. Great business, by the way, that does this is Personal Capital in the US. Great model, and I'm happy to talk you through it sort of later. Really interesting. The second thing sort of I want to talk about is something called a habit loop. This comes straight from Hooked. Sean, if you've implemented My Prosperity, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on this. Generally, if the end game is to get someone invested, again, coming out of the Silicon Valley piece, the first stage in getting someone to use is the what's in it for me stage. And that boils down to understanding what's the internalized need or motivation and the externalized. So the internalized need might be, I wish there was a place to keep everything organized. I wish I could get this under control. I want to work with this advisor to get the plan done quicker. I want to make it easier to save money, which then leads to, I should go out there and look for a budgeting tool. Or you know what? I want a goals tracker, or I want to help out. In other words, generally people have a feeling they need something and then they connect it with the solution. By the way, that's not always right. Sometimes people make a mistake, I want to make a lot of money. I'll go and buy an self-managed super fund. No, I'm not having a crack there, David, but that's been some people's view on it for a time. Now, but I do think self-managed super funds are good for a lot of different people, but not always for everybody. So at that point, they go, okay, I'm willing to download an app. I'm willing to use your thing. Now, the moment someone comes on board My Prosperity or your app or anything, they're still testing it, right? So, I've seen people who have this wealth app and they send out to the client, welcome, and they send them a big, long, fill out the questionnaire. And by the way, you can put your goals in there and you can model it around. And that's just not working because this client, all the clients on there, they just want some really simple first actions, some simple activities, some easy steps. And this is the key bit. It gives them an instant reward and feedback. A tool that does this well in our space is probably, is it called Wealth? It's the one that was bought by IWF. Wealth Access? No. Anyway, I'll find out the name. They had this really cool thing where you put in your goals, right? I want to do this. And then it had this kind of cartoon and you could have times in a timeline. And you start on a timeline with you looking the way you do now with maybe a house in the background and, no kids and no car. And then you pull it forward and you'd get old and the kids would grow up and then they'd leave home eventually about the age of 40. And then you buy another house and it gave you this visual representation. So it was fun because you could see this reward. Has anyone seen creditsavvy.com? If you want a really good example of a business that does this called creditsavvy.com, basically it's a credit check thing. You log in and bang, it gives you here's your credit score. Here's how you compare to other people like you. Here's how you compare to other people in your area. It's instant reward. Because what happens is when you get people instantly rewarded up and running, you remove that barrier to adoption. You're not trying to get them to do 50 things. They're up and running. The next phase is you kind of introduce them to further action. And the key is more activities regularly happening and they're variable. Do you remember when Facebook first launched? You pretty much poke people. That was it, right? Poke. That was it. Look at it now. Marketplace, filters, And they knew that, okay, we can't just have this poke thing. We've got to evolve. And similarly, it's not about coming up with new functionality, but it's recognizing that once people have got the simple things done, you might want to introduce them to, hey, how about you do this? Hey, this is going to be good. And you keep mixing it up. Does that make sense? Almost like roadmap it out. What happens then is you suddenly get into this habit forming phase. And that's when you get engaged. You start to go, you get increased utility. You make it your central focus. You might even go and seek feedback and try and improve it. But you're inviting people to take ownership and personalization, getting to use it more and more and more, getting them to see. And then that's the point they become invested. And invested literally means the value they place on the tool or the process or the habit far exceeds any sort of other metric. And it becomes almost like something they don't want to give up. Even if you don't use Facebook, many of us would think twice about deleting our Facebook account, right? Because we've been invested so much in it. I think that's where we want to get to. Is this cool? Yeah. So this is the investment's got to do with three things, right? It's got to do with stored value. High stored value equals big investment and decreases the likelihood of disengagement. And the stages that it goes through is firstly giving people the ability to personalize. Going in there, make it theirs. They invest time and effort into something, step by step, and suddenly they've got this emotional payback. They feel like, oh, my data's in there, or I've got these goals I can work towards, or there's some great articles in there. And that's when you get investment. Is that cool? So I just want to sort of kick in and ask this question. What's been, assuming something's been useful, what's been useful for you about this as a concept? Because as I said, it's not something that it's not something you're going to implement right now, but it is something I really want sort of everybody to have a think about whether it sits in their future. Josh, what's working for you about this?
I think just sitting down and looking at like that table you had before with the functionality, what's useful for clients, and really going through those lists and seeing what fits that the best, obviously, and what's most valuable on that list. The things you can't do without. Yeah.
That's in the notes. So yeah, I think add to it, by the way. And if you add to it, let me know what's in there, because that's just off the top of my head. The other Josh.
Thanks for that, Josh, number one.
Just
I think that I don't have this solution at the moment. So I think actually having that portal or a hub would be helpful, because, as you said, the more engaged you can make people. I mean, I can only do so much, but I think as I try and scale my business, I think I need to, as much as I love interacting with clients as much as I can, there's only so much time that I have. So I think I need to have something like this where they can get sort of basic information and also do things a bit more efficiently, like getting updates from client information, that type of thing.
But I think if not everybody's going to go, let's implement a portal. But I think if you can start to be thinking about, okay, I'd like to work towards that central, this is the methodology, this is how we do things, and then implement something down the road and have your eye on it. I think that's part of sort of the road to scale. I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I see it. It's just, this is something to work to. It's either something you can do right now because you're in the space, or it's something to work towards. Debbie, what do you think?
Well, this is really timely for us, because I literally just added to our Monday meeting agenda yesterday to discuss how we can increase our client engagement in our portal, because we're just finding that it's just too hard for them.
Yeah.
So probably today, the list where you're talking about these ideas of what we can include in the portal, or something that we can look at and talk about on Monday. Maybe we don't have the right information in there. From our point of view, we want them to use the portal because we can get them to sign like documents and make it more efficient for us. But what can we do to get them to see the value in it?
Yeah, and that's the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. You've almost got these clients, but sometimes people go, here's the functionality, and clients are like, that's great, but I'm not doing this already, so I'm not seeking a solution. So I think the general rule is, someone said, if you can park what you want them to do next to something that they really want, you're going to get that action. I love it. I'm glad it's timely. One of the benefits I love about our portal is I can log in. I can see when people have logged in. I can see what they're watching. I can see how often they're watching it, which is useful because I can get an understanding whether people are gradual learners, whether they're binge learners, whether they're looking at the right things, whether they're not looking at the right things, whether they've not logged in for a while and they need to kick up the bum. So again, it's, as well as from a financial planning point of view, you've got this clear track of it. They are engaging, they're marking off on things that's really useful. I'm going to look, again, this is a long-term strategy, but I was going to implement it. I'd do 4 things. The first thing is get this focus. Identify, what are the activities, what are the deliverables, and agree as a team that they're going to be certain consistent methods and mediums. So you're all on the same page. if it's not a portal now, find some tools that can make it happen, or work out how to use your tools and update those processes. Again, if you've got processes and ways of doing things, you can add tech in and it makes it easier. If you were ready to kind of go, if you've got a portal, first thing I'd really focus on is communication. I think a 3-part launch campaign. I think 3-part launch campaigns are great. Tell them what's coming, tell them it's here, and remind them what they need to do now. Again, what's coming, when it launches, and then follow up with that series of how-to communications. A launch of a tech tool is like, go and sign up for any tech app. And the first thing you'll do is you'll get a sequence of emails. Hey, log on, do this. It's really sort of spoon feeding you what you need to do. And once you've done that, systematize this into your onboarding process, because it's much easier to embed these behaviors in clients when they're new than it is to try and turn them around later, particularly if they've got strong avenues that they've got feedback from. They phone you up, you answer the phone, you reinforce that sort of avenue. Again, reinforce. Once you've got on board, continue to encourage that shift from old to new way. Identify those early adopters and really reinforce. Don't try and work on the laggers first. Choose your people who are engaging and reinforce. Positive reinforcement is the strongest thing. And then identify the laggers and engage with them personally to reiterate the new way of operating at benefits. If people don't turn up for webinars, and I think they should, I'll email them personally. I think you should turn up for it, which is personally always gets the best turnaround. And then the final thing is just improve it. Use metrics to identify ways to optimize the experience and some usage that might not be working. If your knowledge center isn't working, test some stuff out. Do some out-of-the-box things. Change with diff time for communications. See what works and what doesn't. Continue to optimize those internal processes and the tools. Embed that core system even further into your operating system, and then make it a part of your value proposition. Does that make sense? So guys, look, I was going to ask you what your next step, but I feel like Debbie's next step comes Monday. Sean is probably to sit down and have a think about what he's doing right now and when he can do it. And Josh's is mostly, and tell him unless I'm wrong, Josh, yours is mostly about just starting to think about how, as you move towards this, you can make sure clients are engaging with you in the right way through the right mediums. Would that be?
Probably a little bit further along than that. I actually just sent a note to my compliance officer about the client portal to work out where it's at, because I do actually want to get a little bit more engaged. So if that is available, then at least I can start using that. And obviously, Debbie's already mentioned it does quite a few of the things on that list. So I think that's a good first step. And then after that, I can start looking at whether that will meet all the needs or whether I need to move it into some other portal.
Cool. Well, again, step by step. Do one little bit at a time and go from there. Sean, did I get yours right? Nope.
Yeah, yes, you are right. It's also trying to do it in one place. So I had training just yesterday. So our licensee has got the client portal and they were running through it with us to sort of show us how it works. And it still feels pretty clunky to me. So it's whether that's going to be the right answer or it is going to a My Prosperity or something that's a bit more streamlined for clients. I put
together a pitch deck for our business because of where I want to take it. And I think we're going to have to sort of look out and sort of communicate that. And one of the things I said is innovation is going to come from the grassroots. I don't think, with all due respect to licensees or institutions, they're going to create the future models. It's going to come from us because we're close to it. Whatever solution they're going to give you, they might hit the mark. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not criticizing, but they're too far away from the end user. They're too far away from the problem. They're too far away from what's needed. That's my view on it.
And many are ingrained with like the old way of doing things, or maybe old ideas rather than grassroots. You tend to get those new ideas that may form those green shoots to become the next best thing. So
it's like, I know there's some licensees out there who are known for having really good software, but when you actually walk through it, I've walked through a few of them. You go, there's so many freaking steps in this. It actually complicates the process. Oh, okay, this is a compliance system. I understand why you think it's awesome, but it's not. It's the same reason that often, and with all due respect, I as a coach, I'll see a system and I'll go, oh, that's amazing. And then when I actually step back and I go, no, I like it. You guys won't use it. It's like I've done so many things. I've launched the dashboard and you don't use it because it's not important to you. Similarly, I'm guessing when you've gone out and bought My Prosperity, like, oh, that's amazing. But again, to clients, they're just like, I don't need this, or I don't know how to use it. Okay, guys, I've been wanting to do this session for a while, so I appreciate you sort of indulging me. I hope it's been useful. Again, this is one of those sessions that kind of less on the practical side, but more on this is where it could head. So from here, we're 9 tracks down for the year. And the next one is probably, I think, one of the most important ones because it's the last one of the year. We've got a bit of a break. I'm going to do a training session about testimonials, which I've been wanting to do for a while. But the final one's called Bring It Home. And the reason why this matters so much to me as a final session is it's about tying up loose ends. It's about ending the year on a high and being able to step away. Because I think every single one of us needs to have some really good downtime over the break. I know everybody in here has worked really hard. You've put your pedal to the metal. If we go into 2022 and we have to keep up the same pace this year without a break, I know I'm not going to make it. So it starts in week 1 with something called end of year engagement. And these are 3 done for you campaigns, done with you. Yeah, well, they're kind of, we put them in front of you and you run them to prospects who didn't engage over the last 12 months or before to kind of remind them, hey, did you get done what you needed to get done? And they go, no. And you go, well, should we get on top of it in 2022? Send it out to clients so you get a bit of Christmas cheer and all the partnerships. It's a great time to do it now, so you can prime your pipeline for January. Because generally, as a rule, whatever you do now will dictate how quickly you start the year in 2022. The second one is calendar programming. I have done this every year for the past 5 years. I plan out my calendar for 2022. I lock in my holidays well ahead of time. I design not my ideal week, my ideal months, because ideal weeks don't work because some weeks have public holidays and that stuffs everything up. And then I take control of it while it's a blank sheet of paper. So when I come back, it's like, put this here and all the important stuff is already locked in. And then the third one, which I think is the 10th of December, is called the end of year debrief, which is basically about just downloading the year that was, banking the wins, recognizing the challenges, understanding what's unfinished, understanding what you know now you need to focus on, and almost creating a mini restart plan. So then you can just go brain empty, I'm going on holiday, and you can actually disconnect without going, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I forgot to do this, which is the killer. So if you're interested in joining me for that, it's something that I think, given what everybody's gone through over the last 12 months, I'm definitely going to need it. And I think it's a useful process to go through. Guys and girls, enjoy your weekend. I hope you've got a great one lined up. I hope the weather's looking good. It's looking like we're being ravaged by storms, but we haven't got any here. But give me a shout if you need anything. Otherwise, I'll see you soon. So there you have it. There's Hub Strategy. And again, this is another module that we've lifted from our curriculum with the intention of sharing a little bit about what I work with businesses like yours, advisors, accountants, brokers all over Australia and sometimes globally to help them implement. And hopefully it's giving you a sense that I am really big on helping people unpack key areas of their business around marketing, client engagement, client experience, systems, processes, teams, productivity, a whole bunch of pricing, and really getting down and practical about how it all works, how to make it work for you, and how to take it to the next level. If this has been useful, again, feedback is always awesome. But if it's tickled your fancy and you want to know more about the programs that I work with practices through and how I work, and potentially even talk to me about working with you and your team, feel free to head along to audere.com.au, audere.com.au. Find out as much or as little as you want to know about the programs, and ultimately, if it tickles what you are looking to do, then reach out and let's have a conversation. That's it from me. Stay tuned next week for more of the Finnovator. In the meantime, have a great week.